Hi, this is Bobby, and welcome to Off the Cuffs. Today I have with me Crystal. I'm excited to have you today, Crystal. We were talking off camera. You said some very inspiring things. As the preacher would say, you said some things that'll preach. This month we're having conversations about the violence. We're having conversation about gun violence in our community, in our state, around the country. And so all this month we're speaking with parents who have lost a child, a loved one to gun violence. And so today I have with me Crystal, and we were talking, and come to find out we grew up a few blocks from each other. She grew up on 25th and Gilmer. Of course, I grew up on 25th and Glen. And so I'm excited to have someone from the neighborhood come and spend some time with me today. So Crystal, welcome to Off the Cuffs today. Thank you. So, it's a very sad conversation to have, but I think it's a very powerful conversation to have. Hopefully we can empower, change some minds, change some hearts, and hopefully change some lives. So tell me, I know where you grew up, but tell us a little bit about Crystal, and we'll begin.
Well, Crystal Thompson, 21 years old. No, I'm almost 50. Mother of two daughters. Lost my son in March 23rd, 2014, due to gun violence. And again, black on black crime. Mm. And, it was devastating.
How old was your son?
He had just turned 22 years of age.
What's his name?
Christopher Thompson.
Christopher Thompson. Wow. So, where was he at? What was?
He was at home, sitting in front of my home in his car. Had just gotten off work, eating a hamburger, when someone took his life.
Wow. So we were having a conversation yesterday about gun violence. And I made the comment about we're burying too many young men too soon. The order is our children are supposed to bury us, not us burying our children.
Right.
And I was asking, the question was, what were you doing that day that changed your life? It started out as a normal day. Tasha said she was in Florida when she got the call. And each person I've talked to started the day with a normal day, not knowing what's around the corner, not knowing that their lives are about to change, not knowing that their lives will never be the same.
Right. Well, it started out that Saturday morning. Me and my youngest daughter was getting ready to go to a band competition in Raleigh. I kissed him on his forehead, and he kissed me back, and something didn't feel right. But I went on with the day, and the competition was over. We were on our way home, and he pocket dialed me. He said nothing. He just laughing, him and one of his friends in the car, just laughing. And I listened to that conversation all the way to Winston, from Burlington to
Really?
Winston.
You're hustling on your
Yes, not knowing that would be my last time hearing his voice.
Wow.
That Sunday morning, March 23rd, 3 a.m., knock on the door. And I was in the home. I heard nothing.
So it happened in front of the house.
Yes.
And you heard nothing?
No.
You asleep?
Me, my daughter, my grandbabies, and my mother.
Was the police department?
The police department knocked on the door.
Wow.
A young man would just so happen to be getting off work, walked down the street, and stumbled over his body. And he called the police.
Did he know the assailant? Did he know the person that killed him? Or
We don't know. His murder is unsolved.
it's an unsolved
Yes.
homicide?
Yes.
Wow. We were having the conversation yesterday that so many times homicides happen in our community, and somebody knows who the shooter is. Somebody knows what happened. But But yet, nobody says anything. And, I always ask the question when I was actually on the street working, I asked the question, well, how would you feel if someone had information pertaining to your loved one? Would you want them to tell? Would you want them to talk? Would you want them to say something? And the question is always, yes, I would. Well, here is your chance to do what is right. And so that was 2014, right?
Yes.
So 6 years you had to live with not knowing who that person is that took your baby's life, not knowing, did you see that person in the grocery store? Did that person walk up to you yesterday, walk by you? Did that person hug you at the funeral? Did that person stop by periodically? That's a very strange unknown, not to know who the killer of my child is, my son is, that is still walking around free, unsolved, and no one says anything. How do you deal with that? What I learned yesterday is that we talked about the mental health factor that goes in that, the siblings who go through mental issues behind losing a sibling. The parents go through a whole psychological difference in their mindset and how it affects them going forward. How have you dealt with that?
Prayer.
Prayer.
Daily.
That's strong.
Prayer. I know some people that have lost kids and they couldn't cope, and their mindset is just
gone.
Yes. But I had 2 daughters and 2 grandkids at the time that I had to be here for. I had to be strong for my daughters. Not only did I lose a child, they lost a sibling, and my oldest daughter was his twin sister. So, it devastated her, because the question that she would always ask, and she still asks, even after almost 7 years, Mom, why did my other rib have to leave me? I don't know how to answer that. They don't know how I feel, and I don't know how they feel. But what we do, we talk, we self-counsel. I had been set up with counselors, but they couldn't counsel me because they didn't have kids. And how can you counsel someone that you don't know what they're going through, their struggle, their anything? So we self-counseled. And me and my children we always had a strong bond. But since the passing of my son, the bond is even greater. We talk every day. We don't agree on everything because they're not teenagers. They're 29 and 24, and I listen to them, and I don't always agree, but we have that common ground. We'll talk about it, and I pray for them daily, because even when they say, Mama, I'm going here with such and such, I just say, y'all be careful. And I pray for them. I worry. A mother, our job is never done, and I don't care how old the child is.
Wow.
Our job is never done. My mother still worries about me when I go out the house. But, and it's evil everywhere. And you can't let that evil consume you or stop you from being who you are or living your life. And my son loved life itself. So after his passing, I mimicked my life after his. Stopped taking life for granted. Because you don't know, I might walk out this door today and not be here. But I'm going to enjoy the moment and live
strong, Crystal.
Live it every day like it's my last. And that's how my son thought about it. And, I'll give you a story. He was 10 years old, and we were on our way to church. And he said, Mom, and I said, yes, son. He said, are you scared to die? And I said, son, let me think about that. I say, but while I'm thinking about it, let me ask you. I say, are you afraid to die? He said, no. He said, really, there's only 3 ways you can go. You die in your sleep, you have a car wreck, or somebody take your life. And my son died by the latter. At 10, he wasn't afraid to die.
Wow. Wow. I don't even know how to respond to that one. Wow. I guess that, when I see what's happening out here every day, I guess a lot of kids are saying they're not afraid to die, they're not afraid, but I hope, my prayer is that someone sees the pain in your face as a mother and they decide to set their guns down. I hope that a mother sees the pain in your face and says, you know what, son, we're going to do better because we know better. We're going to do better because that's what we're supposed to be and who we are. There's so many things happening in the communities to a place where I often wonder, what can we do differently? What can we do to stop? I know that we'll never stop violence in America. I know that, not in my lifetime, gun violence. How do we slow it down? How do we at least get it somewhat under control?
Like my daughters, they're young. It's the younger generation that doesn't want that village that we had, Sheriff.
Yeah. We talked about that yesterday, the
village.
village.
If I got in trouble somewhere, if your dad saw me doing something, mm-hmm. he was going to chastise me. Mm-hmm. He would let my mom know, and then I got it again.
Right.
It's that village. Now you have these mothers saying, don't put your hands on my child. It doesn't matter what he did, And some kids, you see how they act, and then when you try to talk to the parent, you can kind of understand why that child is where he or she is. Us as older adults, if we can, we need to take that younger generation under our wing like we were done. But we have to let them know, it's a village. I'm not here to hurt your child. But, to keep them out of that casket and you following that hearse, let's do something better. I know what that coffin is, and I know what following that hearse is. I know, when they close that casket, it's final. I'll never see my boy again. I go to some people say that when that other person takes a life, that parent lost something. They didn't lose anything because they get to go see him. They get to hug him. They get to kiss him. I go put flowers on a grave on the holidays and his birthday. I shouldn't have had to do that. My children should have be burying me when it was my time, not the other way around. So I don't think that other side lost anything when they still have that child here that committed that crime. And but if we can, like I said before, if we can reach one, we can teach one, and maybe it'll trickle down.
Do you think that we have become desensitized to gun violence? Like, you and I were talking about when we grew up, if something happened, the neighbor would chastise you, and then when my parents got home, I would get it again. When you and I were growing up, we listened to AAA. It's on the radio station I remember. You never would hear the verbiage that you hear on the radio now. When you and I were growing up, if someone had got killed through gun violence, the community was outraged. I mean, we were outraged by that. There's no outrage now with gun violence in our communities. It's like business as usual.
Right. And that's what I try to tell these kids when I speak to them, and even my own. We'll take George Floyd for an example. They were outraged because a white police officer killed a black man. Why can't we be that enraged when a black man takes another black man's life? Justice is justice, and no matter who kills who, you ought to be enraged about it. And then, sometimes it's just how we, like you say, we have been programmed to hate each other. And black people are the most we hate each other. We're like crabs in a bucket. We see somebody doing better than you are, you're gonna pull them down, or you want what they have, so you're gonna take a life. I never understood that concept.
I think that so many things have happened in our society that have traumatized us, that causes us to be something that we're not, that causes us to move in ways that we should not. I think that there are so many social issues that we have given up to where we just become outraged, and the violence is just magnified. And I talk to young kids, young men, young girls, grown folk, and there's a mindset out there now that is totally different than the mindset that we had. And I have to say this, and probably going to irritate some folk, but they'll get over it. We as parents, we as adults, we have a fault in this as well, because we have allowed some things to happen that we should not have allowed. We have allowed some behaviors that we should not have allowed. We have allowed some things to come into our space that we should not have allowed, that we should have been outraged. We have accepted some things that we shouldn't have accepted. And thus, we are truly, truly, right now, what I see, we are at a place that we've got to turn this around. We've got to turn it around. You think about it, I can't remember in my lifetime, and I've been in law enforcement for 36 years now, the violence, gun violence, I can't remember it. I've never heard of the county next door, Davidson. I think they had 3 homicides this past weekend, 3 or 4, something like that. I've never heard of people being so emboldened that they would shoot it out at a church. I've never in my life, seen nothing like that. And then just at the courthouse on yesterday, another young man lost his life. I don't know where we get that kind of mentality. I mean, barbaric.
First of all, they don't fear anything, and most of all, they don't fear God anymore. And they, at the point that they don't, people don't care.
And that's what I mean by when I said we allow some things to happen that we should not have. when we allowed them to take God out of the church, God out of the school, prayer out of the school, you allowed so many things to come in. When you take something out, you're allowing something to come in. So if we took prayer out of the church, we allowed something else to come in. When we took discipline out, we allowed something else to come in. There's a price for everything. The question becomes, is it greater than what I'm giving up? And so you said a mouthful when you said that we've got to be outraged. We got to be outraged, because you taking something that you can't give back, that's a life. You can't give that back. You'll never be able to give that back. And so what would you say to anybody watching, anybody that's picking guns up, any mothers that's out there? Someone sent me a video I was watching yesterday. Someone was celebrating their children's birthday, and they shot a video with the kids with guns in their hands, like pointing the guns, like it was a novelty. It was, I don't know. I couldn't figure out what was the reason for that. What was cool about shooting a video with guns in hands. I don't get it. It's almost like we are, okay, it's all right. Guns have one purpose, and that is to kill.
Right. And, they look at it as okay until that knock is on their door. And then it's not okay. And then you want to play the blame game, but go back and look at your video. You self-promoted that. My children didn't even play with water guns.
Growing up, like most houses in the 60s, we had common denominators. We had a picture of Jesus, Martin Luther, John F. Kennedy. And then you had these little plaques that my mom used to put in the house. She used to buy them at Paul Rose's. I don't know if you all remember Paul Rose up in Northside. And there was a little plaque that my mom had hanging right on the wall as you would go upstairs. And I'll never forget it. It said, "I complained when I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet." Right? And so what's crazy about that is that we see things happening. And what made me think about that is that it's all right till a knock is at your door. It's all right when it's somebody else's child, somebody else's family. I'm just truly sorry that you still 6 years later, you said 14.
Yeah, almost 7.
7, wow.
March of 2021 will be 7 years.
You remember the month, the day,
the time,
everything.
Yes, sir. I'll never forget it. It's like I remember the day he was born, the hour, the minutes.
So when the knock came at your door, right, what were you thinking?
Well, it was, knock on the door, and there was a young man standing across the street. He, same silhouette as my son,
Yeah.
same build, dreadlocks. And the first thing I said, and he had never given me any problems, so I don't even know why the question came up. I said, "Christopher, what have you done?"
So it was the police that knocked on your door?
Yeah, but it was I guess an undercover officer that was across the street.
Mm-hmm.
He looked just like my son at that moment. He had the dreadlocks, and I just simply asked, "Christopher, what have you done?" And that's when the police officer turned and said, "Ma'am, he's deceased." I said, "No, he's standing right there." And then the officer turned around. But I thought it was my son. I thought it was a joke.
Was he in the car?
No. He was, I assumed that he had one foot out the car with his door open. And whoever shot him, I guess he, fell out of the car on the sidewalk. I'm assuming that's what happened. I'm not sure if the police took him out the car, laid him on the sidewalk. I'm not sure, but he was on the sidewalk.
Wow.
So, at that moment, it hurt so bad. It was a disbelief. I didn't know if I was supposed to cry, laugh. I just didn't know what to do.
So many emotions run through you at the time.
Yes.
So how are you and your family doing now?
It's a daily struggle, Sheriff. It is. I mean, 7 years is it's a long time, but it seems
It's
just
not.
like yesterday.
It's not.
Because I keep replaying it over and over my head without the insanity.
Right.
Just trying to figure out why or who could have done this. Because, children do stuff out of our sight, and we never know anything about it. If he did something, why not turn him in?
Right.
Or tell me. I would have turned him in. I would have rather seen him behind bars than to have to go see him.
Where you saw him, man?
Yes.
Wow. So, why don't you do me a favor? I want you to share with me, before we get ready to go, if you had to say something, or if it was something you wanted to give a message to the people that are watching, the parents, the shooters. Because, while we're sitting here today, there is somewhere, somehow, somebody living the day they won't be with us days from now because of the uptick in the violence that are going on. What would you say? People say you learn to get over it. You don't. You never get over losing a loved one. You learn to live with it. And you said you relive it. And my mind is racing as we're talking now from, it's a horrible way to wake up to a knock at the door that you've lost a child. So what would you say? What would you say to people that are watching or hearing or listening to this? Or the guy that's loading his magazine before he goes off today with his Glock in his pants and his britches.
Start by saying the fate that you would put on someone else's family. Think about your parents. The fate that you put on them if somebody else retaliates. Then there's somebody else walking in my shoes. Your siblings walking in my daughter's shoes. Children you leave behind, either theirs, the suspect, or the victim. You're leaving children behind to do the same thing. Stop the patterns.
Break the cycle.
Yes. Stop it. And like my mom always told us, if you living in my house, you don't have a room. You just live in it. And if you had it, I same thing with my kids. I made sure they didn't have anything in my house that I wouldn't have had in my house, because if you did, you'd be gone.
Right.
Stop treating your kids like they are your best friends or your friends. They are your children.
And it's your job to raise them.
Exactly. You are the parent. I have never been my children's best friend. I am their mother, first and foremost. I give them the opportunity to voice their opinion. But
Wow.
when I tell them enough is enough, they know it's enough.
Wow, that's true. So true. So true. Chris, I wanted to let you know I appreciate you for taking time to come and talk with me today. Anything that I can do for you, you know I'm here. I hope that you've pricked someone's heart. I hope that you've touched someone. I hope that we realize that we're burning too many diamonds. We are causing too many casualties. We are greater than this. We are better than this. And we deserve better than this. And so I hope that we realize that. I hope that what you said has touched someone. And I appreciate you for coming by today. As always, I enjoy having conversations, meaningful conversations, but the conversation that we're having on the gun violence is one that has really stumped me. It is one that has made me look and realize that we've got to do something, because the victims, the people that are dying in our streets are getting younger. We're talking about babies. We're talking about our future. We're talking about our legacies. And so I hope that we realize that we've got to change the atmosphere, because if we change the atmosphere, we have the ability to change the outcome. And if we change the outcome, that's a chain reaction. Thus, we breaking chains and breaking cycles. As always, I love you. Thank you for joining us. This is Bobby with Off the Cuffs.